أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ramadan with Zidane. Today is the 2nd of Ramadan, and hope your Ramadan is going healthy, wealthy and wise, and everyone is reaping the rahmas and barakas of this wonderful month. I hope everyone has had a wonderful Ramadan so far, and the first 2 days have gone according to plan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us more chances and more opportunities to earn rewards in this blessed month. We are continuing where we left off from Surah An-Nahl, which is the 16th chapter of the Quran. It has 128 verses, the 70th surah in sequence. And last time we talked about the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ayahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now we are continuing on from verse number 41. So without further ado, we should start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والذين هاجروا في الله من بعد ما ظلموا لنبوينهم في الدنيا حسنة ولأجر الآخرة أكبر لو كانوا يعلمون. And those who emigrated for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who suffered, they will have a much far reward than everyone else. It is in Surah Hadid 2. وَمَا لَكُمْ أَلَّا تُنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And why don't you spend in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Allah is the dominion of the heavens and the earth. It is a very powerful verse really in Surah Al-Hadid. And again the same thing is being told over here. And continuing the verse, it is said, لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا وكلا وعد الله الحسنى. Even though everyone will be given a great reward, those people who fought before the conquest of Makkah, people like Musab ibn Umair who emigrated, people like Abi Hudayfa radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, both of those, Musab ibn Umair and Abi Hudayfa radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, and those people who immigrated, Usman ibn Affan radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he also immigrated in toughness, he left behind his riches. These people, Abdullah ibn Suhail radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, these people who immigrated in tough conditions, they will have the utmost reward. The 42nd verse now is the 42nd verse of the surah. Allazina sabaru ala rabbihim yatawakkalun. Those who were patient and on their Lord they trusted. Wama arsalna min qablika illa rijalan nuhi ilayhim fas'alu ahla zikri in kuntum la ta'lamun. And indeed we did not send messengers before you, except we also inspired them. The same thing over here, we gave them the same message. Which message? Bil bayyinati wa zuburi wa anzalna ilayka zikra litubayyina lin-nasi ma nuzila ilayhim wa la'allahum yatafakkarun. With the scriptures, and we also sent down upon them knowledge. Afa amina alladhina makaru sayyiati an yaksifa Allahu bihimul arda aw yatiyahumul adhabu min haythu la yash'urun. To those people who devise the evil plots, do they feel secure? Indeed, this is a very thing to ponder, that those people who do evil, how do they even feel secure? How do they not think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will sink them into earth or give them a torment? أَوْ يَأْخُذَهُمْ فِي تَقَلُّبِهِمْ فَمَا هُمْ بِمُعْجِزِينَ. Or he can seize them in their paths so they cannot be saved. أَوْ يَأْخُذَهُمْ عَلَى تَخَوُّفٍ فَإِنَّ رَبَّكُمْ لَرَؤُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. Or he may catch them with the wasting of their wealth. And again it is said in Surah Yasin, وَلَوْ نَشَاءُ لَمَسَخْنَاهُمْ عَلَى مَكَانَتِهِمْ فَمَا اسْتَطَاعُوا مُضِيًّا وَلَا يَرْجِعُونَ. Same thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to him is all the grace and all the dominion. أَوْلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى مَا خَلَقَ اللَّهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ يَتَفَيَّأُ ظِلَالُهُ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَالشَّمَائِلِ سُجَّدًا لِلَّهِ وَهُمْ دَاخِرُونَ. Very important verse over here. Don't you see that everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, have you ever seen the shadow of anything? It does not go straight, it goes toward the left and the right. It makes prostration unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is the way of being lowly. It does sajda in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even our shadows, they do sajda in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the next one, this is the ayat of sajda. Indeed, it is required to do sajda over here whenever we recite this. وَلِلَّهِ يَسْجُدُ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ مِنْ دَابَةٍ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. And indeed, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prostrates everything in the heaven and the earth. The angels, the plants, the animals, and those who believe. And indeed they worship them with humility. يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They fear their Lord above them and they do what they are commanded. Again, they do not have a free will. وَقَالَ اللَّهُ لَا تَتَّخِذُوا إِلَٰهَيْنِ اثْنَيْنِ إِنَّمَا هُوَ إِلَٰهٌ وَاحِدٌ فَإِيَّايَ فَارْهَبُونِ. And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the mankind that there is only one God and worship Him sincerely. وَلَهُ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَلَهُ الدِّينُ وَاسِبًا أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ تَتَّقُونَ. And indeed to Him is everything in the heavens and the earth. And to Him is ad-deen al-wasiba. Ad-deen al-wasiba means a perpetual, sincere obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is obligatory. That is fard. Now the next verse. وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ إِذَا مَسَّكُمُ الضُّرُّ فَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And whatever blessing is upon you, that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever you get touched by any kind of hurt, you go towards it. It is also in Surah Fusilat. إِلَيْهِ يُرَدُّ إِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ. Indeed, to Him is the knowledge of the last hour. وَمَا تَخْرُجُ مِنْ ثَمَرَاتٍ مِنْ أَكْمَامِهَا وَلَا تَحْمِلُ مِنْ أُنْثَى إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. And it is again upon His knowledge that everything like this happens. Again, next verse after this. ثُمَّ إِذَا كَشَفَ الضُّرُّ عَنْكُمْ إِذَا فَرِيقٌ مِّنْكُمْ بِرَبِّكُمْ يُشْرِكُونَ. And whenever that heart is replaced, then you turn back towards disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then after the hurt is removed, we go back to disbelieving. لِيَكْفُرُوا. Now this verse is also in Surah Rum, and it is in also Surah Ankabut, I reckon. لِيَكْفُرُوا بِمَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ فَتَمَتَّعُوا فَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. And indeed, to deny what they have been given, so you enjoy, indeed that will come. وَيَجْعَلُونَ لِمَا يَعْلَمُونَ نَصِيبًا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ تَاللَّهِ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ عَمَّا كُنتُمْ تَفْتَرُونَ. And indeed they assign a portion of what we have provided them unto them, what it is false deities. They do shirk in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they do not know what is in store for them. وَيَجْعَلُونَ لِلَّهِ الْبَنَاتَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَلَهُمْ مَا يَشْتَهُونَ. And they assign unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the daughters, which is, they say, this is Nauzubillah, they have this assertion, they said that the daughters of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are the angels, Nauzubillah. This was the Arab polytheist belief. But now it is being said to them, وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظَلَّ وَجْهُهُ مُسْوَدًّا وَهُوَ كَظِيمٌ. And whenever any one of them has been given the glad tidings of any daughter, their face become black and dampened. Because it is in Surah Tawheed that when the baby girl will be brought back, resurrected, and will be asked, بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. That in what sin I was buried. There was a very bad practice at that time. يَتَوَارَى مِنَ الْقَوْمِ مِنْ سُوءِ مَا بُشِّرَ بِهِ أَيُمْسِكُهُ وَلَا هُونٍ أَمْ يَدُسُّوهُ فِي التُّرَابِ أَلَا سَاءَ مَا يَحْكُمُونَ. Indeed, he keeps the daughter away from the people because of the evil of what he has been informed. Is he going to put her in the dust? Again, this is the very first instance in that time of speaking of women's rights. Islam, again, the pioneer in this. Again, it is a very important thing. Islam spoke, advocated for women's rights. Now the 60th one. لِلَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ مَثَلُ السَّوْءِ وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. And indeed, for those who do not believe in the hereafter, is an evil torment awaiting them. Now the 61st verse. وَلَوْ يُؤَاخِذُ اللَّهُ النَّاسَ بِظُلْمِهَا مَا تَرَكَ عَلَيْهَا مِنْ دَابَّةٍ وَلَكِنْ يُؤَخِّرُهُمْ لِأَجَلٍ مُّسَمًّى فَإِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهُمْ لَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ سَاعَةً وَلَا يَسْتَقْدِمُونَ. And indeed, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were to seize all the mankind for their wrongdoing, none would be spared. Of course, the people do mistakes, but it is up to us to control it as much as possible and ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The same is the essence of Ramadan. We fast to control our mistakes. Even if we control something that is permitted on us, we are going to control something that is not permitted on us. Now the 62nd verse. وَيَسْأَلُونَ لِلَّهِ مَا يَكْرَهُونَ وَتَصِفُ أَلْسِنَتُهُمُ الْكَذِبَ أَنَّ لَهُمُ الْحُسْنَى لَا جَرَمَ أَنَّ لَهُمُ النَّارَ وَأَنَّهُمْ مُفْرَطُونَ. And indeed they assign to Allah what they dislike from themselves. They assert the falsehood. They said that the angels are the daughter of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although they themselves dislike the daughters. Now the 63rd verse. تَاللَّهِ لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمَمٍ قَبْلِكَ وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ فَهُوَ وَلِيُّهُمُ الْيَوْمَ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And indeed we sent messengers to the nation before you, but they also disbelieved and they also met the same torment. وَمَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ. Now 64th verse. إِلَّا لِتُبَيِّنَ لَهُمُ الَّذِي اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And we did not send this book down except for a guidance for everyone, and indeed the messenger is also except a guidance, as said in Surah Anbiya in the 21st chapter, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Now the 65th verse. وَاللَّهُ أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَحْيَا بِهِ الْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ مَوْتِهَا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَسْمَعُونَ. And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the rain from the sky and He brings back the dead land to life. Just like after a very big drought, whenever a drought finishes, big rains come down. and then they finish, and the earth is resurrected again in one way to say. Kazalik nushur. This is also a way to show the resurrection. It in Surah Araf, that this is how the knowledge of resurrection is shown to you, just like how the earth is revived. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ لَعِبْرَةً. Now over here, from this part, the 66th verse to about the 85th verse, the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be counted. And in most Makki surahs, this is a way in this style that the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala get counted, like Surah Zariyat, Surah Tur, Surah Safat, Surah Nahl. وَإِنَّ لَكُمْ فِي الْأَنْعَامِ لَعِبْرَةً نُسْقِيكُم مِّمَّا فِي بُطُونِهِ مِن بَيْنِ فَرْثٍ وَدَمٍ لَبَنًا خَالِصًا سَائِغًا لِلشَّارِبِينَ. And indeed, in the cows there is a sign. We give from you drink in between the blood and the unwanted material, which is the feces, and in between that the milk is produced. Over here it is said pure milk, which is palatable. وَمِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ النَّخِيلِ وَالْأَعْنَابِ تَتَّخِذُونَ مِنْهُ سَكَرًا وَرِزْقًا حَسَنًا إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَعْقِلُونَ. Of the date palms and the fruits of the grapes, you get a drink. Now this was before the final verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah. إنما الخمر والميسر والأنعام والأنصار رجس من عمل الشيطان. It is said in the end. فاجتنبوه لعلكم تفلحون. This is a very famous verse. رجس من عمل الشيطان فاجتنبوه. So just like this, over here the same thing. This verse is about the alcohol, because in that day, in the Arab day, those people used to use from the palms and the grapefruits, they used to make alcoholic drinks, and at that time it wasn't fully prevented. It was not fully prohibited. It was gradually prohibited in the end. Alcohol was prohibited because the harms were more than the benefits. So this is a little outdated verse. Now the next verse, 68th verse, and it's a very important verse. وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ أَنِ اتَّخِذِي مِنَ الْجِبَالِ بُيُوتًا وَمِنَ الشَّجَرِ وَمِمَّا يَعْرِشُونَ. Can you see a very important thing, that the sentence, the tense that has been used over is a feminine. أَنِ اتَّخِذِي. It is, if it was supposed to be male, it would be said Anitahizu min al jibal. Or why it has been said over here, you can see that the head of the bee house, the head of the hive is a queen bee. And 1400 years ago, this has been shown that the bee was used to be a queen. There is a hive, the queen of the hive is female. And this was even in 1600, 1700, when William Shakespeare wrote his play, he referred the head of the hive as a king bee, not as a queen bee. And it was until very recently, the queen bee has been discovered. So you can see how big of a miracle this has been. Again, another divine revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How 100 years ago, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would have been known from a microscope that this queen bee is there. So this is a very divine thing. Next one. Summa kuli min, again, feminine tense being used. Should have been kulu if it was male, but it's kuli over here. So you can see why. ثم كلي من كل الثمرات فاسلكي سبل ربك ذلولا يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلفا ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. Then you take nectar from every single plant and you make from it a very sweet tonic, which is honey, and in it there is a very important cure. Now whenever anyone has bronchitis, flu, RSV, any kind of respiratory disease, they use honey so that their respiratory ailments can be cured. Again, فيه شفاء للناس. والله خلقكم ثم يتوفاكم ومنكم من يرد إلى أرذل الأمر لكي لا يعلم من بعد علم شيئا إن الله عليم قدير. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you and He will make you die one day. كل نفس ذائقة الموت ثم إلينا ترجعون. It is in Surah Al-Kabut. And then one day you will become old and you will forget what you have used to know. Just like Ronald Reagan, he was the president of the United States. Dementia sets in, and in old age you don't remember, and you become very fragile. It is in Surah Hajj too. And وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُرَدُّ إِلَىٰ أَرْضِ الْأُمُرِ لِكَيْ لَا يَعْلَمَ مِنْ بَعْدِ عِلْمٍ شَيْئًا وَتَرَى الْأَرْضَ حَامِدَةً فَإِذَا أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْهَا الْمَاءَ اهْتَزَّتْ وَرَبَتْ. So it's the same thing over here. And then some people who die before that, and that's because to show you about life. وَمِنْكُمْ مَنْ يُتَوَفَّى مِنْ قَبْلِ والله فضل بعضكم على بعض في الرزق فما الذين فضلوا بإرغاض رزقهم على ما ملكت أيمانهم فهم فيه سواء أفبنعمة الله هم يجحدون. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives someone a little more in provisions and someone a little more little in provisions. It is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu yabsutu rizqa liman yasha wa yaqdir. Wallahu ja'ala lakum min anfusikum azwajan wa ja'ala lakum min azwajikum banina wa harthatan wa razaqakum min at-tayyibat. And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you a pair for your own kind, and He has made from them sons and grandsons and given you good provision. Afabil batili yu'minuna wa bi ni'matillahi hum yakfurun. This is again blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa ya'buduna min dunillahi ma la yamliku lahum rizqan min as-samawati wal ardi shay'an wa la yastati'un. And they worship others beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who cannot give any of their provision. They cannot give for themselves provision. Allahu yabsutu rizqa liman yasha wa yaqdir. Fala tadribu lillahi al-amsal. And do not make any examples like Lat and Uzza and Baal. These are bigger, na'uzubillah. Don't make these examples. Inna Allah ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows but you do not know. Daraballahu, now is an example giver. Daraballahu masalan abdum mamlukan la yakadiru ala shay'in wa man razaqnahu minna rizqan hasanan fa huwa yunfiqu minhu sirran wa jahran hal yastamun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives an example of two men. One there is a disbeliever and one there is a believer. And the disbeliever has no power of any sort, and the believer, he is the one we have given him a good provision, and he is the one who has been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Basically the meaning is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is blessed one and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't blessed one. Are they equal? It's in Surah Ghafir. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَلَا الْمُسِيءُ. And Surah Fatir, I guess it's Surah Fatir, that وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الَّذِينَ. This is actually in Surah Ghafir, Surah Ghafir, Surah Mu'min. وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَلَا الْمُسِيءُ. And over there it is وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الظِّلُّ وَلَا الْحُرُورُ وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَحْيَاءُ وَلَا الْأَمْوَاتُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ فِي الْقُبُورِ. That is Surah Fatir. Now the 66th verse. وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا رَجُلَيْنِ أَحَدَهُمَا أَبْكَمُ لَا يَقْدِرُ عَلَى شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ كَلٌّ عَلَى مَوْلَاهُ أَيْنَمَا يُوَجِّههُ لَا يَأْتِي بِخَيْرٍ. And Allah put forward another example. One person has no power over anything. He's a disbeliever and he's a burden to his master. Now two slaves. One slave is very good to his master. He does a lot of things. One of them is a burden. Same thing about disbeliever and believer. Both are the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one is good and one is not good. هل يستوي هو ومن يأمر بالعدل وهو على صراط مستقيم. Is he the same and equal with the one who is upon the straight path? Again the same thing from Surah Fatir, that وما يستوي الأعمى والبصير ولا الظل ولا. It's actually Surah Ghafir. وما يستوي الأعمى والبصير ولا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ولا المسيء. Same thing over there. And over there it is ولا الظل ولا الحرور وما يستوي الأحياء ولا الأموات إن الله يسمع من يشاء وما أنت بمسمع من في القبور. Same thing over there. ولله غيب السماوات والأرض وما أمر الساعة إلا كلمح البصر أو هو أقرب إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Again, just as I was saying that these two parables were set forth, like again in Surah Ghafir, Surah Mu'min, it was وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَلَا الْمُسِيءُ. And in Surah Fatir it was وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَعْمَى وَالْبَصِيرُ وَلَا الظُّلُمَاتُ وَلَا النُّورُ وَلَا الظِّلُّ وَلَا الْحُرُورُ وَمَا يَسْتَوِي الْأَحْيَاءُ وَلَا الْأَمْوَاتُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُسْمِعُ مَن يَشَاءُ وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ فِي الْقُبُورِ. Over here وَاللَّهُ أَخْرَجَكُم مِّن بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ شَيْئًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَالْأَفْئِدَةَ قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you and gave you so many things like the eyes and ears, and you still do not say thanks. أَوَلَمْ يَرَوْا إِلَى الطَّيْرِ مُسَخَّرَاتٍ فِي جَوْءِ السَّمَاءِ مَا يُمْسِكُهُنَّ إِلَّا اللَّهُ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Don't you see to the birds that are hanging in the heavens? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them the ability to fly, not your idols. وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن بُيُوتِكُمْ سَكَنًا وَجَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن جُلُودِ الْأَنْعَامِ بُيُوتًا تَسْتَخِفُونَهَا يَوْمَ زَعْنِكُمْ وَيَوْمَ إِقَامَتِكُمْ وَمِنْ أَصْآفِهَا وَأَوْبَارِهَا وَأَشْعَارِهَا أَسَاسٌ مَتَاعٍ إِلَىٰ حِينٍ. And indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you from the skins of the animals the fur and the places of staying. Just like in Mongolian areas where they are nomad, they are yurts, they are tents in which they stay, and they are made out of fur. Just like this, likewise, there were tents that were made out of fur to keep them warm, because in the desert it is very hot during the day, but it's also very cold during the night. So same thing over here. So this is where we're going to stop. This is the 80th verse of Surah An-Nahl, and inshallah on the 3rd of Ramadan, tomorrow, we are going to be continuing from the 80th verse and inshallah finish the surah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to become from as-sabiqun, from those people who reach the Jannatul Firdausi Nuzula, La yabghuna anha iwaja. Those people, as I said in Surah Al-Kahf. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that tawfiq. And the pro tip for the second Ramadan is that remember Ramadan is the month of fasting, and you must remember that your intention is for fasting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for any other intention, because there is a very important hadith, innamal a'malu bin niyat wa innama likulli imri'in ma nawa. So the same thing applies over here, that our fasting we should know that what our intention is. So that's one thing that I was just trying to say, and we should just act on that pro tip, because remember, before doing any salat, before doing any fast, we should remember what our intention is, what we are intending this for. ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للذين كفروا واغفر لنا ربنا إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.